Doctor, I'll address my first question to you. Could you explain, since NIST has been tasked under the executive order with developing a framework to reduce cyber risk to critical infrastructure, could you explain how the NIST process will work, how the development of a framework to reduce cyber risk differs from the development of standards to reduce such risk, and what do you believe will compel private industry, which I think is so important, to implement the framework that is developed? And given the evolution of technology that you very much into, all of you, generally, and cyber threats specifically, now, how useful is the development of a broad-based generic framework long-term? Will NIST just be chasing its tail, so to speak, or will you be able to get ahead of the curve? I'd be interested for you to share your thoughts here, how the framework and the standards and so forth will apply, or could apply.
Well, thank you very much.
I know that's a mouthful.
I'm going to do my best. The idea behind the framework is very simply to get industry to develop a set of practices, standards, methodologies, whatever it would take that, if implemented, would improve cybersecurity performance. So we used the term framework as a term of art to refer to whatever you would put into place that would result in enhanced cybersecurity performance. That will include a large measure of standards. And the idea behind having industry do it, with NIST acting as a technical supporting role and a convener, has a couple of motivations. First of all, it addresses the capacity. Industry is the one developing IT technology and communication technology, and therefore they know where this technology is going, and they can bring that skill and that expertise into the process to develop these standards. Secondly, these companies, the Internet is a global infrastructure, and these companies operate at a global scale. And by embedding security performance into the products and services themselves, we can in fact achieve a cybersecurity performance that's much broader than our borders, much broader than what we would buy directly. It embeds it in the market and in fact gives our companies the power to shape those technologies around the world. In terms of chasing our tail, I think in a time when this technology is moving so quickly and when the threat environment is changing right in front of us, this is going to be an ongoing challenge. But I think the bottleneck can't be NIST. We are simply not large enough to support this on our own. Our role really has to be viewed as, did we help industry come up with a vehicle where they can organize and be responsive to this? That's the only way sufficient technical capacity can be brought to bear, in my view.
And let me pick up on that if I could. The executive order, as I understand it, discusses the development of a broad framework, which presumably, I would think, means it will be generic in order to have broad applicability to all critical infrastructure sectors. But how will, Doctor, a generic framework address the inherent differences in our critical infrastructure and their unique needs for being protected against cyber attacks? In other words, if we're not addressing sector-specific needs, how can we be sure that we're actually helping protect any of these industries from a cyber attack? And lastly, in this same vein, how do you bring industry on board? Because they have systems, trade secrets, formulas, everything, you name it, to protect. And the government would have to protect those and should. How will that work?
So you're exactly right, and I think that the challenge, the question you asked about, industry's capacity to come together and carry this out is actually the central question. How generic and how sector-specific this framework looks is, in fact, the exact question that the participants in the framework are tackling. The good news is that, in spite of the strong differences across sectors, looking at energy or agriculture or transportation and so forth, they are dependent on a core set of communication and IT technologies. And one of the big advantages they have to working together to set a common platform is that they can drive that performance into the market, and they can buy these computer services and IT equipment at better cost because they're helping to shape the entire market. And that really gets to one of the questions you raised earlier, which is how do you drive adoption of this framework? I think the bottom line is doing good cybersecurity has to become good business. In the end, this is all going to be about alignment. These framework practices have to be compatible with profitable and well-run companies. And that's really, it may very well turn out that the framework discussions are more about management and business practices than they are about technical controls. And that's okay if it helps us achieve the level of performance we're looking for.
Thank you, Madam